It's Infinity Gamer here, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the Baron of Dice Infinity dice sets. So Baron of Dice and Corvus Belli have collaborated to create us some Infinity dice sets. I've managed to get my hands on 2 of these dice sets, and I have this set up here all rigged up so that I can give you some close-up shots of the classic Infinity dice, the plastic ones, the D20s that are faction specific, that come with many of the 2-player packs, and then the Baron of Dice set so that you can see a direct comparison. I have my hands on 2 of the Baron of Dice sets here. Friends and I are running a tournament at the end of the year, at the end of next month, and we decided that we would go halves on a set of these to add to the prize pool. We then also decided that we would get a set ourselves. My friend has taken his set, but I now have the 2. One of them is the prize pool one, and the other one is going to be mine from now on. The ones I have here are the Thrice Coalition, which is basically, I'll explain the range in a second, but these are the red dice. And then I have the orange Imperial Service dice here. In front of me, and what you're kind of seeing right now, are the O12, the Ariadna, and then the Combined Army. I think these are Combined Army, or these are just like the Nothing. I think that maybe they're the Nothing ones. Black dice. And so I'm going to get the 2 side by side and compare them, explaining the Baron of Dice range, and also explaining, that there is no partnership here with Baron of Dice, so I'm going to be very, very honest about what I see here, the pros and cons, the flaws. And I've also got my hands on the Nomad red dice, which I've just added there. Really annoying that I can only see 2, because I know they come in sets of 3. And that is one of the things that some people are going to love about these Baron of Dice sets. When Corvus Belli give us these dice sets, they love to give them to us in 3s. The Baron of Dice set, they come to us in sets of 6, which is really good, because it is very often, at least for me, that I'm rolling at least 6 armor saves. I'm not necessarily shooting this many times, but I'm definitely making this in terms of saves. The packaging, we'll talk through that first, because you can see it all here. Nice containers that we've got there. One of the small, it's not even really a bugbear, but every single one of these sets has the military orders artwork on the outside, which isn't an issue because I play military orders and I love military orders, but I do think being maybe more faction specific in the artwork would be nice. However, as the dice are not going to spend very long in their tins, I don't think the artwork on the tin is much of a muchness, really. One of the things I do love opening up this Thrice Coalition set. So the Thrice Coalition, there are 2 versions of every colour. So I'll open up both of these so that you can see what I'm on about. We have like this marbled yellow and this marbled red. The Thrice Coalition is named after nomads, the 3 ships, motherships of the nomads. But the difference here is that instead of the nomad logo, we have the Infinity N. And so what that means, and what I like about that, is that you can get a faction-specific dice set, like what I've done here with the Imperial Service ones, which are the Yu Jing dice set. But because they've got the N, they're not actually the faction themselves. And so if you like a colour, but you don't play that faction, or you don't want that faction's logo on your dice, it doesn't matter, because every single set comes with the generic N logo, and the name slightly changes. As I've said, so these would be Yu Jing if they had the Yu Jing logo. These would be Nomads. Instead, we've got Imperial Service, and we've got Thrice Coalition, which doesn't really disguise where they were before. The colouring within them is great, and that's another reason why I've got this set up here, is because I really wanted to get enough light on the dice for you to be able to see the colours, the textures, everything that's going through them. Really nice rounded edges here, which I think is quite underrated for dice. I was in 2 minds as to whether I did this, and you can see that I'm doing it, so clearly wasn't in 2 minds enough. But I have another dice set that I wasn't going to do as like a comparison here, because they're so totally different. That's the Die Hard Dice Medal dice set. And I don't think that, like, from a price point perspective, from a material perspective, these aren't comparative at all. But one of the things here is that they've got like harder edges, and I think I've been using these for about 1.5 years now, and there's a lot of wear on that edge. Sorry that the focus is can't decide what I'm focusing on. But because they actually started off quite sharp, they've actually kind of blunted themselves but unevenly just over wear, which, you know, part of me loves because that's the wear and tear of the dice and that shows some character for them. However, with the Baron of Dice, not only are they plastic or resin or whatever they happen to be, but because they're already quite curved, there's less chance of them, you know, chipping or being damaged as you use them, but also you won't end up with that horrible situation where like you feel like it was going to go over, but because the edge is so sharp, it kind of stops it and then goes back. Or you might love that. You know, I don't think, well, obviously it doesn't matter strategically, but I love the contrast here because there have been die sets that have been released and I can't quite remember them. Actually, I think sometimes these metal ones suffer from that a little bit. This one is actually one of the higher contrast dice, but if you look at the rest of the Die Hard dice collection, some of them, the numbers are not quite as abstract from the colors behind and they blend in quite well. I've also got a couple of friends who have got dice that, you know, you roll it and you cannot tell what the number is. Love the fact that with all of these Baron of Dice sets, the contrast between the numerical values and then the colors behind is excellent. And that's another reason why I wanted to show you both of these, because we've got, you know, like a lighter set in the Imperial Service, and then we've got a darker set in the Thrice Coalition. And you can see the clarity there is excellent. So definitely not going to be an issue in telling what you've rolled, which is really quite good in a game, I think. Nice little cushioned box here. Again, everything sits quite nicely. They feel a little bit bigger than standard dice, so I think it's now maybe time to pop those to the top there and then bring in, I'm going to do the Nomad versus Nomad so that you can kind of see. So there's a small size difference which you might be able to make out there. I'm not very good at guessing these, but I would be surprised if it's kind of like more than about 20% size difference. But it's noticeable, so you can definitely like feel that the Baron of Dice sets are nice and they're bigger. Like I would never complain that the Corvus Belli ones are small, but it just feels a bit nicer. The rounding is pretty much the same. You know, the numbers are just as easy to tell on that, but obviously what we're seeing on this side is that fantastic marbling going through, which you just don't get on the plain, you know, like Infinity ones that come through. Obviously can't show you the logo versus the logo because I've specifically gone for the non-logoed versions, but bit of a size difference there, which is quite nice. And it's the same, I don't have the Yujing set because I've never ever played Yujing, but that might be easier for you to tell the size difference between the two just there. Yeah, you can kind of see that there's a little bit. I haven't played any games with the Baron of Dice sets yet, mostly because I've been trying to work out which one I'm going to keep. I think it's this one. I think it's going to be these. But yeah, and then this one's going to be the prize set. But I do love the uniqueness of them. I've mentioned price point. Obviously pricing is going to be like slightly, you're going to have to factor out shipping and things like that. So I wouldn't necessarily like go ahead and say these are cheap or these are affordable. I found them very good value for this. I think from New Zealand's standpoint, and I will just double check what we've got here. I think it's, yeah, it's $20 US for a dice set, and then there's going to be shipping on top of that. We ended up, I think, having to pay about $20 shipping, which then split between the two of us, brought these up to, and plus exchange rates, which is the other thing that factored in. So they ended up being, I mean, things in New Zealand aren't price comparative because everything's expensive here because you've got to get it here. But I think $20 for a set of 6 dice that are larger than the standard, they're more detailed, they're more colorful, they do feel a bit more premium. And this box is great. I like the fact that it's only as big as it needs to be, which is going to make transporting it to games really nice and simple. Again, comparing that to the Die Hard Dice metal set, which has, like, you know, you can tell the huge amounts of padding, which it probably needs, because if these metal dice hit the ground, probably going through anything. Both of them are kind of in tin containers. Both of them have padding. You only get 5 dice in the Die Hard Dice set. You get 6 in the Baron of Dice set. Obviously, these are metal, and they're like enamel and inlaid. These things are kind of like more like a work of art that you happen to use all the time. These ones are really nice and premium, and definitely a step up from your classic Infinity dice. But you know, they don't cost an arm and a leg, which is, I think, quite key for most players. So having not been given these dice sets for Baron of Dice and actually paid money for them, I don't regret it at all. I am curious to see whether I use the Baron of Dice sets more than the Die Hard dice sets because I've become quite familiar with the meta ones. But I think from a practicality point of view, I'll probably end up using the Baron of Dice ones quite a bit because they are like so much smaller and easy to transport around. What do you think about the Baron of Dice sets in comparison to probably more so the Infinity Corvus Belli ones? Do you like them? Are you keen on them? Have you got a favorite design that you would quite like to have? I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on what you think about these new dice in this collaboration, and I will be back soon with another video.